is so painful to imagine that we are in a community which is supposed to be considerate of each other. It is like if I went back into the country where I was born and Idi Amin is in power, I could understand what Idi Amin is doing. But to be in San Bernardino and I go through the atrocity worse than what I would get in front of Idi Amin puzzles me.
We can substantiate everything that was stolen from you, but it seems to make no difference to the courts.
Well, because the court was interested to bury me, not in delivering justice in my case.
Well, you're entitled to a jury of your peers. In any case like this, I mean, that's part of our justice system. Unless you're in a kangaroo court, which apparently you have been. But this is totally unreasonable. Hi, I'm Lloyd Brock with the California Corruption Files. Now today's file is the hijacking of a bank account. It may seem a little strange, but it does happen. And I will get into a lot of detail about that. But this documentary is a factual account of the corruption involving millions of dollars taken illegally from a doctor's bank account. Now, 2 banks are involved in this illegal transfer of funds, maybe a few more, but Bank of America and Community Bank are the main ones. And there doesn't seem to be any oversight by local law enforcement or federal government. That is why we're bringing this corruption file directly to you. We're going to be talking to Dr. Samuel Sepoya, who his bank accounts were hijacked, and there's forgery involved. There's corruption goes to the highest level. And Dr. Sepoya is sitting right here, and I'm going to ask him concerning when it started back in 1993 and supposed to have ended in 1995, but this did not end. And it started with a marriage, didn't it, Doctor?
That's correct.
This was in 93 that you got married?
Correct.
And tell me the circumstances of that. This was somebody that you'd known for a while?
Is someone who was brought to my attention by my accountant corporation. Also, he was doing my personal taxes. His name is Kanakaraj. This individual he introduced me to Kanakaraj, who is an excellent office manager, because my previous office manager was moving out of the area. So I needed someone. And amazingly, when he introduced this individual, I ended up with this individual who he asked me, please, could you help this person to be able to stay around here and be able to help you? And I had no idea that this man and his wife, they were scheming to try to rip me off, which they did.
Oh, he was actually married to her at one time.
He was married to her
At the
when
time.
even she came, yes.
But he never divulged that information to you.
No, he didn't.
And what was her name? She had a totally different name than his, right?
No, she had this same name, Kanakaraj,
Ah. And her first name?
Vaidehi.
Vaidehi. And this, how did the marriage take place? You allowed her to work for you for how long?
She worked for me for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I was planning to go to East Africa because my brother passed away unexpectedly. And I was going to East Africa. She said, oh, I can go with you. Just before we left to go, she said, you know, I am so lonely, blah, blah, all that nonsense she was talking about. And then out of the blue, when we were on the flight, I was going to stop in Nairobi to deal with my brother's business in Nairobi. We went in Nairobi. When we landed, she said, "You know, I like you so much. You are such a wonderful person." I said, "Why don't we go and get married?" I thought I knew this individual, but unfortunately, she had an entirely different agenda. And we went to the registry and we got married. And I thought she behaved like a normal person. And after that, when we came back, and I had no expectation that she was a fraudulent individual.
How long had she been divorced from her husband?
It was less than a month. Just before I left, that's when she got the official divorce. It was planned.
And you get back here, and then what happens?
One day, I think it was about 6 months after my last trip, things really got worse. Now that was close to just after 2 years of this relationship with her.
Yeah.
I wake up as usual to come to work reasonably very early. I said, I'm going to work. She was asleep. And then I came here in the office. She never showed up. I waited until noon. I called home. There was no one answering the phone. Then I left after seeing the patient in the hospital. I went home to visit to see what happened to her.
Yeah.
When I went over there, I found the house. She had taken whatever was hers. She had packed off and left without saying goodbye, without saying anything.
Now, what was her capacity as far as in business with you? Did she have any legal right to sign your name to anything?
No.
She was part of the medical corporation, or?
No.
She wasn't.
She wasn't.
So, and you discovered money was missing before she left, or?
Shortly after she left, I sat down quickly and went through all the papers. Thank God I did.
Yeah.
I identified that the signature very closely was not mine.
This one here
Yeah, that's his.
is his signature.
That's the doctor's signature.
There's Raidehi's, that's her.
Now, you look at that one. This is my signature here,
Yeah.
okay? This one, but look at it here on the top.
That's definitely a forgery. This one right here.
Okay,
You can see all
on
of
one which
Yeah.
was being signed on. I didn't get a chance to review to see exactly which account number it was, but it had my name, but the signature was not mine. She had closed the old account and opened another account with the Bank of America using my forged signature.
Forged signature, and this was verified too, right?
Correct.
Later on. But this was, and you discovered how much money was missing at this particular time.
At that time, my assessment, from what I could pick up immediately on the paper that evening, was close to about $500,000.
I see. Then you filed for divorce? Or was this sometime later?
It was a Friday when she left.
Right.
At night, at about 11 p.m., I went to the police to report a fraud.
Right.
Next Monday, I went to meet my previous lawyer where we had done the prenuptial and we signed it. She signed also. And I attached those exhibits at the time of filing the case that there was a nuptial agreement.
And how much money could she have gotten after you signed the prenup and she decided to leave? What was the maximum she could have gotten?
she would have received about $1,000 something per month.
That's it.
That's it.
And and I see that you've got some things written down here that you discovered later on during the marriage that she took money out to pay relatives. Wow. This is truly amazing how much. $25,000 here, another $25,000 there, another $20,000 here, $5,250, $12,000 here, another $12,300 there. It's truly amazing that you should have had somebody auditing, but that's a matter of trust. When you go into a relationship, you supposedly trust that individual to do what's right, not steal you blind like this one. It looks like it was planned all along. But this is only the tip of the iceberg.
1994, all this money of mine was going into this account in Chino Bank. This was my home.
That was his home.
Okay? Did she buy this property? No. This is what she decided to do.
Just sell your property.
Yes. And also the property in Texas, I told you.
Yeah.
I had 20 acres of land with a beautiful home on it.
She sold that.
And you had this prior to getting married?
Yes.
She
All
should
the
have.
things I had before
Well,
the marriage.
the prenup should have taken care of all that.
Absolutely.
But the prenuptial never counted in the eyes of San Bernardino judicial system.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a complete and total levy. He lost everything what was in the prenuptial agreement. All his homes, everything which was his property and prenuptial agreement was
Yeah.
quite nicely done. They took everything. It was a support for 3 or 4 years, everything. And all accounts, everything came to her.
I think this would be a good idea for another segment showing the prenuptial agreement means nothing in San Bernardino
Of course,
County
absolutely.
because nobody ever listens to it.
No.
I mean, but everybody advocates it, and you probably paid a good sum of money to get it.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, but if it's ineffective, what use is it? And nobody listens to it.
And they took, and she said, his retirement plan appeared to be their community property, although she worked only for 2 years, and there was plenty of lies that she never got a salary.
Well, they weren't entitled to take everything.
Though we had at her tax return, she was receiving salary. I mean,
She actually, after you filed for divorce, I think this is pretty interesting, that she filed for divorce, and there's a paper here. I don't know where we see that. You've got so many that she said she was going to take only $130,000. That's all she wanted. She went to an attorney, and the attorney said there was $130,000 that she had in cash that she'd taken from him, and she wanted to keep that, and that would be, that's all she'd want. Now that was in there, and she kept that, right?
Correct.
And I think it's interesting to see that even with that, she stole more money.
Unfortunately,
Dr. Sapuya filed for divorce in June 1995, June 25th, but
Yes.
he received a letter on June 20th.
On June 20th, yeah.
Yes, it means that everything has been already planned, that he been retained to represent by Dehi Ganesan, in a
Dissolution of marriage
proceeding.
And she'd already
And
left
then-
on the 15th, so
Yes,
it's
yes.
kind of strange that she had planned this in advance.
If you're aware, for her own protection, my client has safeguarded approximately $130,000. And,
At this time, she has authorized me to propose a resolution of this matter wherein she would retain the cash she has withdrawn and would relinquish any and all interest she may have in any and all assets, including but not limited to your medical corporation. You would retain the family residence and any other assets in your possession. In consideration of this, she would further waive any right she may have to receive spousal support.
That's correct.
But where did she get the $130,000? She forged her name on documents in order to get that money. So it was illegally obtained.
It was illegally obtained from my bank.
What did the bank have to say about that?
Actually, the bank was very interesting because when I asked them to provide me all the documentation on that, they were not willing to give me the documentation. They were giving me all sorts of excuses not to take it. And of interest, at the same time when this became an issue, the branch manager who was running that was moved away from the bank.
Did you pursue any other legal, like the local law enforcement, the DA, the FBI, the Federal Trade Commission, things like that usually investigate bank fraud?
I did not do that because I didn't think that going into the court, all the facts would be covered up because Macavo and other individuals who were in that bank, they considered me to be unwanted person.
Yeah, well, you had a little history with Judge Macavo because he was on the board of directors at Community Community Hospital of San Bernardino, right?
He is the person who was brought when the corporate members wanted to make sure that they cannot wipe out the existence of the corporation membership before they see what Mr. Bruce Satzer, who was the CEO, had arranged with the board of directors to hand the community hospital. We objected, medical staff and several members on the board. Consequent to that, Macavo decided that we opposed him. He got upset with me on that.
Well, then he shouldn't have been involved in this at all because of conflict of interest, right?
Correct.
He couldn't possibly do this without a conflict of interest because he didn't like you in the first place.
That was brought to the attention of our legal person, who said, in case there is an issue of conflict, you are the place where we are going to come. He said, I don't care, I am going to be here. And also of great interest, they brought CHW, now called Dignity, to be in that meeting. They were taken to watch the counting. We were not allowed, even not a single person on the opposition was allowed to be present on that counting.
I don't understand how this could continue in San Bernardino County, but we have, there's an interesting point here that Judge Kamansky made in regard to your case, but it says, Mr. Blankenship, who was your attorney, said, not as a judge, Your Honor, but as an individual, and he answered, it doesn't matter. What difference does it make? It is our courthouse. It's the supervising judge, and I'm familiar with the situation. And I'm a supervising judge, and I don't think you're going to find somebody in this courthouse that's going to be able to hear this case. I mean, I can't even really assign or I kind of feel awkward assigning it to another judge given my situation. Given Judge McConnell's situation, I called our supervising judge for the county, Judge Kennedy, and we determined that this case should be sent to the office of the court AOC. And I can never get the administrative office of the courts in the main downtown office in San Francisco to assign to a judge outside this county. So in other words, you had to stay here and deal with it, even though there was a conflict of interest.
That's correct. And that has been perpetuated to date.
Well, it's a kangaroo court that we have here. I mean, I've heard that said many times that in San Bernardino, you can't get any justice. There's a kangaroo court. People don't recuse themselves as far as, there is conflict of interest in many situations. And judges knowing lawyers and their friends and say, well, I can't do this. I'd advise you to do that. So they cave. So what has transpired since this time? Tell me about the retirement fund. What happened?
Immediately when I discovered that she has been taking money, I made it a point to seal all those accounts. It was approved in the court, but again, later, about a year later or so, Judge McCarville decided to take my case and hear it himself.
No, what did you do? Did you object to that? Naturally, you would.
In fact, I was not notified, nor my lawyer was given that he is going to have a hearing. And that decision was made differently. And they opened up my accounts, the retirement account, and the money which I had blocked in San Francisco account, which by day he had taken my money. He opened them and late had taken the money, and it's not accounted for. And they keep telling me now that I will owe her money because the court had demanded that I pay her $4,000 a month.
That wasn't in the initial agreement. She said, I'll take this $30,000 and that's all that there is. You won't have to pay me monthly spousal support or anything else. So they took it out of the bank. How could they do that when you own half of it? Even if you were legally married and she was entitled to half, how could they possibly do that?
Well, the bank was ordered by the court in San Bernardino that you open up the account and told
Give it all
us
to her.
Exactly, and also they did the same thing with my retirement fund.
What do you estimate the amount of money she's gotten so far?
Considering what I was making in the corporation and the accounts were being deposited on a separate account, a good number of years she took, on the average I was making close to about $900,000 a year for the corporation. I was able to put a retirement down. By the time she left, there was nothing left. In my account in the bank, I had about $300.
Jeez, that's unbelievable. And that's why I say your bank accounts were hijacked, pure and simple, with the permission of the courts. And that could happen to anybody, in this county anyway. So I can't see any other. It's really amazing, and it hasn't stopped yet. You said this month she's trying to get more money.
Correct.
How much is that? 200 and some odd thousand.
That's about the figure. $300,000.
What is the reason for this? That's based on supposedly the $4,000 a month that you've owed her over the years plus interest? Is that what it's all about, or?
I guess that's what they're saying, but of great interest is the fact that this girl remarried shortly after she left me.
And she's still married to that man?
She's still married. She has a flourishing business in Hawaii.
Well, we have a gentleman here with us, Greg Simpson, who's investigating some of this, and he's found some information. Greg, could you give us a little information on that?
Yeah, I found that when she left Dr. Sequoia, that she went up to Shasta County. She worked in the welfare department up there. And she evidently met a gentleman named Charles Herbert, a wealthy individual. And they seemed to have connected in 1998, probably married in 97. But in 1998, they set up a residence in San Jose, 2635 New Jersey Avenue, San Jose, California. It's a matter of records all through any record keeping deal shows this. But she's also they now live, and they now confess that they're husband and wife, and retired to Hawaii in a $3 million home at 6213 Kalahulu Road in Kilauea, Hawaii. She's been on all these addresses. She still uses Dr. Sepoya's Weaver Street address to do things, to claim things. I find it throughout her little game that she still uses Dr. Sepoya's address, which is incredible.
Well, she's evidently taken other people, but I, if we could ever find out who these people, these individuals are,
well, like Raj,
maybe they'll be watching this and they can come forward and say,
yeah.
I've been a victim too.
Well, like Raj Kanakaraj, the one that introduced them, he has a Liberty tax franchise up in a town called Palo Cedro, California. It's a thriving business, and he's still doing what he's doing. There's just an endless trail, and all you have to do is follow and develop this trail, and you'll see that this woman is as crooked as I've ever seen any
And she
human
stays
being.
out of jail.
And she stays out of jail, and she continues to rob this man, which is incredible.
Yeah, to this day.
To this day, she continues to rob this man. She has no right to anything after the marriage, and he had a prenuptial agreement, and she seems to defy all odds on this.
What did they do with that prenup?
There has never been a hearing in the court. I have never been in the court where Ganesan was present in the court.
I'll be darned.
And all these rulings which you hear about, I have no clue whether she even traveled. It could be just her lawyer using his position. They put up something to tell them that, well, do this. And his allies, they decide to do something about it.
Well, the money she's asking for right now, that $300 and some odd $1,000, she's never been entitled to because of the prenup.
That's
And
true.
that's, and that should be brought up. And that's what your lawyer should bring up now and say, look, we had a prenup and nobody ever brought it to anybody's attention. What has transpired now since, as I say, you went to court yesterday, and what was the outcome of that, and why were you there, basically?
We were there because they said I failed to obey the court orders, and they gave, I think I'm now away close to 400,000.
Yeah,
He denied it.
He denied it and said, it is a court order, you have to pay, and he's going to collect whatever he can. And
Regardless of the circumstances and the fact that it was illegally awarded.
correctly, they said, oh, she sounds a very creditable witness. Now, did I steal anything from her? No. Did I sell her property? No. She took off, she didn't say goodbye, she took off, and Bola was the person where she left the house keys because I was working. When I went back, she had already left and everything of hers was taken.
This was Judge Bowler?
Judge Bola was her lawyer and has been her lawyer until a few months ago.
There it goes. There it is.
Yeah, I mean, this is as it's kangaroo court. You couldn't get justice in this county anywhere. You know what really gets me is the fact that she made off with all this money, and then here's a document right here from her attorney during the divorce.
Yeah.
And this was June 20th, 1995,
Yes.
where it says right in there, she's if she can keep the $130,000 that she stole from you,
Yes.
that she wouldn't pursue it any further, no spousal support, nothing. And it should have ended right there. In addition to your prenup, which they never brought into court. They never allowed it in.
No, they never had any hearing of any kind dealing with me. Everything was done behind closed doors.
Now, if that isn't a kangaroo court, I'll put it in with you, but that's totally unfair, and it's not a part of our justice system, and it shouldn't be. Everybody has to have justice, and you never receive that. Not in San Bernardino, California court system.
I have been experiencing this at every level in any case that I have brought in San Bernardino court since we started this fight, which involved the people he helped to rip us of community hospital.
And just last month, they came up with another bill after all this time, 1995, when she said if she was allowed to keep this $130,000, that it'd be over. That you were only married to her for 2 years and there were no children involved.
Exactly.
It should have been a very simple divorce. That was it.
Yes.
But it got complicated, more complicated as it went along. And then last month, how much did they want?
350 plus interest. Plus interest.
And this was for?
Because they decided that such because I didn't pay according to the instructions of the court. Where was the hearing? Where did they hear my case on my presentation? They never allowed even my lawyers to have a hearing in front of a jury or in front of me, and she would be answering question and I'm answering the question and the court recorder is recording. If you look into the record of the court, there's hardly anything recorded by the court recorder.
Well, you're entitled to a jury of your peers in any case like this. I mean, that's part of our justice system, unless you're in a kangaroo court, which apparently you have been. But this is totally unreasonable, and I think anybody in their right mind would disapprove of this. How could anybody be that powerful enough to say you're guilty and she's innocent when we have all the proof that she's totally guilty of crime, a crime committed against you, and she's probably still doing it.
I am of the opinion that something need to be done quickly, because I think we are not, or by that we are not, I'm saying my wife and I, we are not the first victim. Like I pointed out earlier, that one of my colleagues is going through the same agony because his wife took everything, ran away, and because someone didn't like him, so they have really tried to execute him legally.
And as I say, that's how to hijack a bank account and take this man's money. If you want to do it, move to San Bernardino County, because you can't get justice here.